computation is still the best way to do it. Even in his famous Chinese room argument, Searle said that what I'm criticizing is computationalism, which is the theory that cognition is just computation, nothing but computation. Well, sorry, he said that cognition is computation. And then he did his argument that in the Chinese room you wouldn't understand Chinese even if you were passing the Turing test in Chinese. Did that go by too fast, or should I
Can
actually
you
do it?
explain the
Okay, okay.
Searle's Chinese room argument?
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't, the fewer words you use, the better it is. He said something like what I eventually said afterwards with the Chinese dictionary. He says, supposing you had a a candidate that could pass T2, which means it could be a chatbot with you for a lifetime, indistinguishable from a real person. You could not tell it apart from a real person. Uh, and supposing it did it purely by computation, this is important. He says, just a computer can do that. Searle, because of the nature of computation, could do the same computations. I could find out what recipes it's using, and I could take the Chinese. If you're talking to it in Chinese, I could take the Chinese inputs, which are symbols, and I could manipulate them according to the rules, and then give you the output without understanding anything that I was saying. You may have asked me what does ban ma mean, and the answer may have been it's a striped horse, right? I wouldn't know that I was saying that in Chinese. So if I wasn't understanding it, then the computer doesn't understand it, and therefore cognition is not computation. He said it too strongly. He said it's not computation at all. Go study the brain. Go bugger up a bunch of animals and do a lot of mental imagery. But the answer is that all he's proved is that it's not just computation. A lot of it can still be computation. And he called computationalism strong AI, the strong artificial intelligence, the theory that cognition is just computation. Uh, but in fact, he endorsed, and he was right to endorse, weak AI, which is the same as the strong Church-Turing thesis, namely, the computer is a very useful tool for testing theories, for modeling, etc., as we did with the rocket science. And so that part was right. And I still think that that's going to be the biggest component. We're going to be finding out, first of all, we don't have an exact idea of what it is that humans can do, but we have a good enough idea already that we've got our work cut out for us for a long time. You don't have to do the fine tuning on a particular cognitive task before you can start doing modeling for heading towards the Turing test. We already know enough, but doing in our work, for example, it turned out to be useful to have a computer model of supervised learning and to be able to put into that computer model of supervised learning the stimuli that we give to our human participants to see whether just in the stimuli themselves, there are some that are harder to tell apart and less hard to tell apart, because that we could do with the computer model. Okay, and stuff like that, it's still useful for. But in general, it's gonna require ideas. And in fact, you said weasel word without defining it. A weasel word. Do you know why a weasel word is called a weasel word?
Because
Do you know?
you can use it to weasel your way out of
Yeah, yeah,
defining
yeah.
it.
That's the metaphor. But why is it called? What's the weasel got to do with it? Yeah, no, it's not. No, it's not that. I thought it was that too. It's not to weasel your way out. It's because weasels, um, who are carnivores, but carnivores. When I was vegetarian, I also ate eggs and dairy, and now I don't eat them. They eat dairy. They eat eggs, and what they do is they nip off the end of an egg, just nibble off, and then they suck out all the egg, the white and the yolk, and then leave the egg. So the egg has the shape of an egg, but it's got
Mm,
nothing in it. That's why these are called
that's
weasel
a
words.
great metaphor, actually.
Yeah, it's a really good metaphor, except I don't like it because it's not very visual. Um, anyway, so what was I going to say?
You were talking about weak AI and and Chinese room argument.
Yeah, I've done that. What I was saying was that in the process of doing
We're
computer
talking about
model.
reverse engineering cognitive science in weasel words.
Yeah,
And
that's the name of the game, reverse engineering.